So, opening up the slides, very first thing. So this is a part 1, part 2. However, anybody can come to part 2. It's not going to be contingent on like, oh my gosh, I wasn't in part 1. I'm going to be totally lost. We will do like a super fast recap. What we're talking about here, reimagining effective community engagement. We are, come on in. We're talking about living out our discipleship, the service part of our discipleship, which is totally Jesus's example to us, right? But what can we do to better engage in our community? So community engagement, service, serving like Jesus did, it's just part of our discipleship, right? This class and part 2, it's just how we do it is almost more important than if we do it, okay? So that's what I wanted to get across. So we're on slide 2 now, and again, I'm sorry, I'm just gonna be telling you, switch slides. So we're gonna be talking about some things that you might have a little, I don't know how I feel about that, right? So I really, really want to encourage you while we're here, and we're gonna do some practical application, like this is why the chairs are kind of like this. I wanted us to huddle a little bit so that we can really collaborate, and we'll do that toward the end of the class. But when you kind of feel that tug, that heart pull, in a good way, in a bad way, whatever, I just really want to encourage you to lean into it, right? Because that's when we grow. That's how we learn things, and that's how we expand our comfort zone, literally, right? And so when we do that, think about scriptures. You know, there's always that scripture that you read. You've read it 1,000 times. And you read it that next time and you're like, man, that one really pricked my heart, but I don't know why. The same way that God doesn't want us to shrink back from scriptures, like it's pricking our heart for a reason, you know what I mean? Like God wants us to lean in so that we can grow spiritually. This is about growing. It's about growing spiritually. It's not that Hope Worldwide had this amazing training that we put together. This is all based on scripture. So that's the thing. Let's use the scripture. I'm on the next slide now. 3 key ideas. So when we're talking about these 3 key ideas, I am going to go through these relatively quickly because, we've got a lot of information. I want to give it to you as condensed, but as effectively as possible, and then still leave time at the end for this practical application. So the 3 key ideas that we're looking at, and this is so that we can engage in our community in the best way possible. So we want to acknowledge that poverty is not just material. Okay, think about that for a moment. Wrap your brain around that for a moment. We're going to talk about the fact that poverty is relational. It's not just material. Point number 2 is doing with rather than doing for can promote dignity. And the last one, amplifying strength can have better impact than addressing needs. And again, there's scriptures throughout this whole thing, but let's just jump right into key idea 1. So switch your slide, please. So key idea number 1, the scripture that I have with that, Deuteronomy, he executes justice for the orphan and the widow and shows his love for the stranger by giving him food and clothing. So show your love for the stranger, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. So when God was giving the Israelites this reminder, right, he wanted to remind them. He wanted to remind them that those among them, there was material poverty among them, and they weren't being taken care of. That was the whole point. And so God wanted to remind them, hey, you guys were in need. You were all in need at some point, right? So he wanted them to remember their sameness. We're going to come back to this concept of sameness. So again, remembering their past, it was important for them to remember their own poverty, and that way they were going to be able to relate more. So when we think about poverty in this country, switch slides, please. So I'm on slide 5 now. When we think about poverty in this country, just really quickly, blurt out some words. What's something that comes to your mind when you think about poverty?
No between like good and bad life.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Sorry, there's no in between of like poor and rich. It's just the extreme of both.
One or the other. Okay, you're either rich or you're poor. Okay, what else?
Living on the street.
Living on the street,
Yeah.
Okay.
No
So
food,
no-
no money, no nothing.
No home, for
home.
sure, right? Okay, so it's something that they're
No
lacking.
job, no nothing.
I was gonna say doubling up because you can't afford to live, with your own family. You have to double up.
doubling up, so you're housing with somebody else. Yeah, great point. And what were you going to say, Paige?
You're entrapped. You need money in order to get the education and skill sets, to get a job, to get money. And then when you have those certifications, no one will hire you until you have already had a job in that field for a couple of years.
Entrapped.
You're stuck.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
It's very stressful. You're just always very, very stressed.
Yes, the anxiety and the stress. Where am I going to get my stuff, right? So it's very extreme. And there's this anxiety, this stress, this worry, right? Okay, flip the slide, please. So the World Bank did a survey, tens of thousands of people across the world. The majority of these statements come from people in countries that we're going to say are majority world countries right now. They're not in the U.S. But this is how they described poverty. For a poor person, everything is terrible. Illness, humiliation, shame. We are cripples. We're afraid of everything. We depend on everyone. No one needs us. We are like garbage that everyone wants to get rid of. When one is poor, she has no say in public. She feels inferior. She has no food, so there's famine in her house, no clothing, and no progress in her family. The poor have a feeling of powerlessness and an inability to make themselves heard. If you're hungry, you will always be hungry. If you're poor, you will always be poor. That's your extremes, right? That you were just mentioning. So, but what are some words? What are some things that come out here that are maybe a little different than what we were just talking about, how we defined it? Powerlessness, yes?
Without a voice.
Without a voice. There's a little difference here, right? So, generally speaking, in this country, we have poverty here, absolutely. But generally speaking, we define poverty here as lack of material things, a home, a house, food, a job, right? Because all of those things lead to material poverty, and they certainly exacerbate material poverty. All right, switch slides, please. So what I want to promote here and what I want to talk about is something that in the nonprofit volunteerism sector, there's been a lot of research on what is poverty. And so this going beyond the idea that poverty is it's not just material, community development experts are saying it's about broken relationships, okay? So again, think about the Israelites, think about Deuteronomy and God wanting the Israelites to see their sameness. So keep that in the back of your mind as I'm kind of going through this. So we're talking about broken relationship with God, with self, with others, and with creation. Broken relationship with God, that's pretty obvious what that is. We were all there at some point before we decided to follow God, right? But broken relationship with self, lack of self-confidence, lack of self-worth. Maybe that leads me to make some poor decisions. Certainly broken relationship with God, that can definitely bring some bad decisions in our lives, right? There is personal responsibility with poverty to an extent. We can make bad decisions and end up in a bad financial place, right? But I don't want to focus on that. We know that personal responsibility is a thing, and God calls us to have that. So we're not focusing on that. I'm not gonna park it there. I want to focus more on broken relationship with self, with others, and with creation. So I can make bad decisions if I have low self-esteem. Maybe I have a God complex. I don't think I need God. Okay, that'll definitely lead to some bad stuff, right? Okay. Broken relationship with others. Well, just not having your network, your family, your tribe that you can count on. If I were diagnosed with some illness, physical, mental, whatever, my mental health, whatever, we know that many, many people who are experiencing homelessness, they are suffering from mental health issues, right? Okay, but I would assume, me for sure, and probably most of you, if something dramatic, tragic happened in your lives, we have people that we could go to, and we have the kingdom. We can not even meet somebody and be a roommate, right? Like, I don't know what her last name is. Right. It's all good. We're in the kingdom. We're in the kingdom. But you know what I mean? Like, that's not the world. So I know that I have family that I could count on. What if you have gone through all of those people? You've couch hopped. You've doubled up. You've done all that. What happens when you get to the end of the line? Okay, so things happen to good people, and it's not because of anything that they've done that's so horrible. They have just exhausted all of their resources. Broken relationship with creation is an interesting one. That's where we start talking about biblical justice issues. We know that there is an uneven playing field in this country, in every state, in every city, in every little town. This is how it is here. Although we have many, 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 many things here, we live in a very blessed place, I'm going to say. We have a lot of freedoms here, right? Okay. So with that said, though, there is disparity. There is definitely under-resourced communities, areas all over the place. That's what I'm talking about with broken relationship with creation. So we're going to listen to a podcast. It's very, very quick. So if you flip the screen one more, the slide, it's slide 8. I'm going to play it on my computer. And again, I apologize for this AV situation, but it is what it is. So we're going to listen to, this is a story. This woman's name is Desiree. As you're listening to this, check out the handout. There's a little chart on there. Listen for those broken relationships. What are some things between you and Desiree? Like, what do you hear?
Ray Metcalf's story is heartbreaking, but not
Sorry, hold on.
among the 46 million Americans who are poor today. This one is 24 years old. The mother of 3 little girls, 6 of 4 children. They all have different fathers. Desiree is sitting on the floor of a two-bedroom apartment in Bath, New York. A fish tank gurgles in the background. A tiny kitten peeks out from under the furniture. Her youngest daughter is curled up by her blanket, head resting on her mother's lap. Desiree got married 2 years ago to a man who isn't the father of any of her children, but he recently left her for someone else.
Oh, I just feel like I get one piece of good news that makes me, hey, life is going to be that bad. Next year comes 30 things. And it pushed me right back down in this hole that I've been trying to dig myself out of for the last 15 years.
15 years, Desiree did not just become poor. A lot of bad things happened together here. Like others who are poor, she doesn't have 1 or 2 problems, but a whole pile of them.
Long story.
Desiree was raised by a single mother, also poor. Desiree says they didn't always get along, and things came to a head when she was 12.
My mom and I got in a fight. She told me she was going to kill me, and I wrapped a belt on my neck and told her I would do it for her. I ended up in a psychiatric hospital, and from there I went to foster care.
And from home to home to home, she attended 26 different schools.
Seemed like I had to get my bags unpacked and time to move again. So,
Desiree admits she was no saint,
an alcoholic. I do self-harm.
which means she cut herself to feel the pain. Today she has tattoos on her arms to cover the scars.
I smoke cigarettes like 15.
I first knew Desiree when she was 15, and I was in a different agency working with her family with the goal of reunification.
That's Marion Resolin. Now with ProAction, the local nonprofit agency, is still trying to help.
She did come back and graduated from high school and was all set to go to college,
In Florida with a full scholarship.
and then turned up pregnant.
Yup, another single teenage mom. But again, not that unusual. Half of all girls in foster care get pregnant by the time they're 19. Desiree knew that her life had taken a detour.
That was my to get out of here, so to speak. Here I am. Not before that.
Like many before her, Desiree carried her poverty into adulthood, doing odd jobs with periods of homelessness and hunger. But here's what's even more disturbing. That poverty is now starting to take its toll on her children, especially her oldest daughter, who recently tried to run away from home in the middle of the night.
She's got emotional issues. And we went through everything from making herself puke after TV to running away to wanting to kill himself. She's 6 years old.
She's 6. She wants to kill herself and she's 6. Okay. There's a lot to unpack there, and again, for time's sake, we're not going to go super deep in there. But clearly, her poverty is more than just material. And if you get into the whole broken relationship with creation, there's so many things there. She is on basically getting money from the state, but if she gets a job, she gets less money. Okay. Her child now needs mental health help, and so to get that, she's getting less money. So it's like you go from like one bad situation to another. I mean, that's pretty much it. And again, it's not fair. So do you have that thing that's like, man, that just doesn't sound fair? She has some responsibility in that, and she said it. But the point is, it's one thing after another. So switch slides, please. This quote by Dr. King, I love. When we go into communities, we have to think about this kind of stuff. Philanthropy is commendable, but it must not cause a philanthropist to overlook the circumstances of economic injustice, which make philanthropy necessary. So when we go into communities, when we're thinking about this whole concept, community engagement, and what we're doing, we cannot be the saviors coming in, right? And so that's something we talk about a lot. But the thing is, part of what we're doing, part of our research, if you will, we owe it to that community to get to know the community in a deeper way. We need to know what we are walking into so that we can engage in a respectful, dignity honoring way. Nobody wants to be somebody's charity case. That's the biggest thing. Switch slides, please. Just a couple of scriptures here. Rather in humility, value others above yourselves. And Proverbs 29:7, the righteous care about the justice for the poor, but the wicked have no such concern. We're called to be compassionate. We're called to be humanitarian. What does that look like in our lives? Next slide, please. So with key idea number 2, this is where we're talking about paternalism. Doing with rather than doing for can promote dignity. So God talks about paternalism. God talks about it. He has a plan. He talked about, and paternalism, by the way, is habitually doing something for somebody else that they could do for themselves. So switch slides real quickly, please. And we look at some scriptures that talk about gleaning. So this was God's plan for not being paternalistic. So God gives these directions, and so we know what gleaning is. When the harvest was ready to be taken, God said, "Okay, so get all your stuff, harvest your fields, but whatever falls, leave it there, and then bring in the ones who can't work. Bring in the widows, bring in the orphans. Let them go and get something from the edges of the fields," right? God did not say, "Hey, we need a committee. I need baskets. I need things. Like, we need a committee. You guys got your food, cool. I need a committee. You guys go in and gather everything else and get the baskets all ready. And then we're going to have another delivery committee. We're going to take it to the homes, right? We're going to go deliver food baskets." Okay, that's cool, but that's not what God said. So why? Why did God want people to be able to go and pick up the food themselves? Why in the world would he do that?
So that they can have dignity.
There's dignity in work. There's dignity in work, right? And again, nobody wants to be somebody's charity case. That's really the bottom line. And so with that said, when we are engaging in our community, there are needs. Yes, people need things, but our place, our mental place, our how we go into a community is more important than if we do it at all. We need to do it the right way. We need to do it in a respectful, dignity honoring way. So if you switch slides, we're gonna read a quick story here. So on your handout, starts with page 1. This is the toy drive story, and this is something that plays out over and over and over. Good-hearted people doing something really cool, but it has a negative effect. Okay, Christmas Eve. So Christmas Eve of 81, I celebrated the season as a newcomer to this urban neighborhood, sipping coffee with one of my new neighbors. Bare floors were swept clean, the clutter was picked up, the smell of pine sol hung in the air. Front windows reflected the light from 2 plastic candles. The children, antsy with anticipation, paced from window to window, waiting for Santa's helpers to arrive. When the knock finally came, their mom greeted the visitors. a well-dressed family with young children. A nervous smile concealed her embarrassment as she graciously accepted armfuls of neatly wrapped presents. In the commotion, no one noticed that the father had quietly slipped out of the room. Not until the guests were gone did the little ones ask where their father was, and no one questioned their mother's response that he had gone to the store. But after years of organizing these types of events, I was witnessing a side that I had never noticed before. How a father is emasculated in his home in front of his wife and children for not being able to provide presents for his family. How a wife is forced to shield her children from their father's embarrassment. How children get the message that the good stuff comes from the rich people out there and it's free. Christmas Eve in that living room, I became painfully aware that not all charity is good charity. So this is from a book called Toxic Charity, which is an incredible, incredible book. But okay, so a nervous smile. Let's just unpack this very, very quickly. Why did the dad leave?
The money could provide for his family.
So what do you think he was feeling?
Oh. Like he wasn't a man, unless somebody else. He wasn't the father that he thought he should be.
That was not the man that he wanted to be.
Yeah.
He's not the man that he wanted to be. Yep. He's not providing, right? The man is supposed to provide for his family. It's Christmas. And he's got strangers coming to his door. So why the embarrassment, though? Where does that come in?
Because other people are taking a place of what he should be doing.
Strangers are the hero.
Yeah.
The good stuff comes from the rich people out there and it's free. Think about the message to the kids for a moment and the damage that would have, the impact that would have over time. Again, there's a lot to unpack there. But when we are doing this, service,
Good stuff.
we're doing the good stuff, right? But again, how we do it. So our goal with this class is to share a few key concepts. We just want to be more like Jesus.
Yes.
That's all. So how did Jesus do things? Go to the next slide, please. Because this is one of my favorite things of how God teaches us this. So key idea number 3, amplifying strength can have greater impact than addressing need. So I'm not going to read all the scripture, but the woman at the well, okay, there is a lot going on there. There is so much to unpack. The scriptures are so rich. But if we just look at some very, very basic things, Jew and Samaritan, okay, that was not a thing. Male and woman, that was not a thing. Unmarried woman, that was not a thing. There are so many levels here. Why in the world did God want to elevate a woman that was very clearly marginalized and an outcast on many levels in her community? She's at the well in the middle of the day for a reason. She's avoiding people. She doesn't want to be seen. She doesn't want to be talked to. She doesn't want to be judged, probably, right? Why would God decide, I'm going to elevate a woman who is powerless and definitely marginalized? What comes out of that? The Bible doesn't have filler stories. We know that. It's here for a reason.
Well, my thought is just to change it up, to change. It's time for change.
It definitely gets our attention. Yes.
It makes a bigger impact because even too, Jesus went way out of his way to be in that intentional spot, and the people noticed that. So it made people aware of, well, we do need to make that change because someone who shouldn't be talking to this person, like, hey, maybe we should come together and start building this bridge. It was a great example of 2 different people coming together, serving each other.
Anybody else would have gone totally around this area, right? This geographical area. What did Jesus do? He beelines it right through the middle. I mean, that to me, that's like one of those flip the table moments. I love that about Jesus. I love it, right? Like, okay, so Jesus chose to allow this marginalized woman to enter the conversation from a place of strength. Did Jesus, he was thirsty. Could he have taken his thirst away? He could have had ice water if he really wanted, right? Okay, for real, But he chose to elevate a woman who was definitely down, but he wanted her to see, you have something that I need. You have something that I need. Because she, and her response is kind of funny. She's a little spicy.
Yeah.
Why are you here? or I'm thirsty. Well, but what do you mean you need something to draw water with? Who comes to the well without something to draw water with? Like, what's wrong with you? Like, she's really spicy, but every time she says something, he just comes back with another gentle, but I need you. You have something I need. And what does she do? Okay, we know how the story ends, changes her life, and goes and tells everybody. The point is, are we asking questions? Are we just coming in as the know-it-alls? Are we getting to know our communities? Okay, so the next slide is a video that I know is not going to play for you, unfortunately. So here's what we're going to do. No, wait, that's the one that you put the link on, right?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
So go in the drive. There is a Google Doc, and the link is like a YouTube link, so it should take you to the video.
Okay, but you're going to mute your video, and I'm going to play it on the Bluetooth. I just couldn't do that other podcast on the Bluetooth. I apologize. So I'm going to start playing it. It does have subtitles, and it's in Spanish. It's got subtitles, but I really want you to be able to hear.
Mi nombre es Ada Maribel Ríos Bogado, tengo 13 años y toco el violín.
Me llamo Juan Manuel Chávez, más conocido como Eddie, tengo 19 años y toco el cello. Este cello está hecho de una lata de aceite, la madera tirada en la basura y las clavijas son de una vieja cuchara para golpear las carnes y para hacer el ñoquis. Y suena así.
Una comunidad como Cateura no es un lugar para tener un violín. De hecho, un violín cuesta más que su casa.
En ese grupo acá mismo encontramos un colador de violín. Y de ese empezamos los instrumentos reciclados. La familia que acá vive recicla todo lo que hay en la basura y se vende. No pensaba antes que yo voy a hacer ese instrumento. Y me siento demasiado feliz cuando estoy viendo a un niño que está tocando un violín reciclado.
Cuando yo escucho el sonido del violín, siento como mariposa en el estómago, así una sensación que no sé cómo voy a explicar.
La orquesta de instrumentos reciclados es una orquesta que toca instrumentos hechos con la basura.
1, 2, 3 y...
Mi vida sería, sin la música, estaría de Corea.
La gente se da cuenta que no tenemos que tirar la basura muy fácilmente. Y no tenemos que desechar a las personas muy fácilmente.
¡Fuerte, fuerte!
Okay, so a lot going on there, but you see my thing, maybe our immediate thing would be, man, let's do a drive. We can raise money, we can get instruments, but all those things, right?
No.
We need to stop and assess and ask questions. There are so many strengths there, so much ingenuity. Flip the slide, please. Leroy Barber, I love this quote, and he has some amazing books. We must make the world more personal so that we can care for one another in ways that lift each other up and invite creativity instead of fostering distrust. So that's something that we're going to do some practical application now. So if you flip the slide again, Nikayla, go ahead and explain what's going on here.
Yes, hi everyone, I'm Nikayla, and I'm going to be helping you guys through the practical application. So it's going to be a group activity. So basically you guys are going to pick an activity on the left side of the graph. So either some type of drive, soup kitchen, or food pantry. And so the first part of the activity, you guys are going to find a way, how do you invite your neighbors in, really living out that key idea number 2. How do you take away that barrier of like only like serving and they receiving, like how do you invite them in? And then on the second part, it's how can you amplify their strengths? How can you use them in your service to make sure you're serving well? So Christina, I believe I'm gonna have you guys join this first group. And what's your name?
Hi, Madeline.
Madeline?
Hi, Madeline.
I'm gonna have you join the second group back there. And since we are a little shorter on time, I'm gonna give you guys like 8 to 9 minutes on the first part, just to kind of like come up with something for your group. And then the last part, we're just gonna share like what you guys came up with. And the second handout that I just gave you guys should be like a tip sheet to maybe help you guys come up with some ideas.
Look toward the back of that tip sheet. Yeah.
Just to help you guys kind of figure out how can I do this better? How can we serve better?
So we're thinking. So only pick one thing.
Yes,
to
sorry.
save time, right? So you're picking one of these things.
The backpack community of food pantry.
Exactly.
Yes.
So these are things that are very, very typically done as there is a definite line giver and recipient, right? We're trying to erase that line, like what Nikayla was saying. What do we do to include others? How do I walk with rather than do for, right? So how do I do that point number 2? And how do I amplify the strengths that exist there? So that's what it is. So check out that tip sheet though. There are some specifics on there, and those are yours to keep, obviously. So take these home with you. Take it to your chapters.
Oh yes, you guys are all one group.
Yeah, sorry. So yeah, turn your chairs, make your circles, do what you want. Sorry about that.
Oh, yes, so am I.
Okay, yeah. What activity did they chose, and then how you're gonna invite your neighbors in, and how you're gonna amplify their strengths. So just one person from each group. Be super great.
What'd you guys do in the front?
So we talked about a couple of things. First of all, trying to make, rather than, we talked about doing a soup kitchen, and rather than having, the defined line of people who are serving food and people who are being served, finding a way to being able to bring people from the community into the food creation process by inviting them to come early, by inviting them to participate in cooking food, by asking them to share. These are their ideas, their recipes. And then afterwards, by rather than just having people eat and leave, participating in conversations, games, amusements, whatever.
Eating with them.
Yes,
having the
thank
volunteer
you.
community joining them at the table.
Yes.
And also trying to find maybe venues with additional resources, such as colleges, schools. Were there others that you talked about? High schools. That will also maybe
To bring like the youth and families and stuff more about.
Love it.
And just the setting to be a more pleasing setting.
then 4 concrete walls.
Yeah.
Fair.
And then what? The last is land the plane. Is what
Having a garden.
Ooh.
So that there can be a little bit more of a process of like harvesting and interacting.
Sustainable.
Yeah.
Love it.
Wow.
That is beautiful.
That's awesome.
That is literally how you erase that line. Sit down and share a meal. How many times did Jesus share meals? It's so communal, right? That's perfect. Okay, cool.
So we chose the backpack school supplies toy drive, and like an idea of a block party. And in the community, instead of having vendors come in to supply, instead of asking the neighbors, hey, what is your gift? So we know, like in the community where I work, I have a lot of parents who they do hair, they do nails, they barber, and it's just like a side hustle that they do. So coming in like, okay, here's some kids in the neighborhood, they need the hair done. okay, we have a couple stations up, you know, and just like have them volunteer or pay them as well. Like, we need some people to man these stations. We'll pay you this amount of money so you can be here and the kids can have a good time, enjoy. But it's really that block party feel. This is our community.
I love it.
Building it up and not just bringing people in to meet the needs.
And amplifying the existing strengths. I love it. What city are you here from?
So I'm from Georgia, but I live in Chicago now, and I work at a youth center, and it's really sustainable. We have a farm, we have a garden on top of the roof, we have a doodle block party, we do teen employment. So the students, they have classes and programs that they are passionate in, but they get paid for it as well. So that's their job. So when they leave high school, they have some type of certificate, and they have this experience that they can take into college. And I work with the post-secondary, so I help them get to college.
So you're in Chicago. I don't know what region you're in, but you need to get a hold of Terry London. She's a chapter director.
She's at
You need to tell her that, and you're like, here's what we're doing, Terry, okay? Because you are the link. You're the community partner that the chapter could partner with. I love it. So the point of all of this is, okay, just like you collaborated, this little group collaborated, your church, your community, your chapter. Do you have a chapter in your church? If you don't, please come and talk to us at the Hope Table in the hall. I know I just jumped right into it. I'm Ingrid. This is Nikayla. We work full time. I know, right? We work full time for Hope Worldwide. I live in Minneapolis. I'm a chapter director in Minneapolis, but I oversee all the chapters in the country. And this amazing Yo Pro is in Atlanta, and she helps run HVC and U.S. programs. She's like an integral part of 2 departments. So come and talk to us at the Hope Table. And what I want to leave you with, we have like literally a couple minutes here.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
This is so hard. I want to talk more. So flip the slide, please. This was fire hose information, okay? But please don't underestimate the power of relationships. That's what this is about, okay? We need to go into our communities, and we need to flip the slide, please. We need to have those 3 key ideas in our minds at the forefront, the front burner, when we are looking at where can we as a church or a chapter use our resources to amplify the strengths of a community. There are needs, and we can support communities, but how we do it is super important. And if you go to the next slide, please, personal reflection and action plan. You have your handout. This is why I wanted to give you a paper thing too. You have some personal reflection and an action plan on pages 2 and 3. Please take some time. Maybe get with somebody else that you came here with, but have the conversation. All of this, what we're doing here in a very, very abridged, condensed presentation, this is to start massive conversation. So among yourselves here, you guys started it here, but when you go back to your groups, when you are with your tribes, right? Like, you got to continue these conversations. And please come and see us at the Hope Table. And if you have other questions, we would love to be a support to you in any way possible. So our roles for Hope Worldwide in U.S. programs, we support the chapters, resources, training. This is a little tiny abridged version of a training that we go around the country doing. It's usually 2.5 hours. So this is very, very abridged, but you're getting your feet wet. So anyway, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.